We hear quite frequently from those of you who cannot make the events, whether you're out of town or live out of town, that you'd love to participate. So in a new tradition, and with our new friend here, Greg Holst, we're going to bring a two-part series highlighting fixed income with a lot of the same topics we'll talk about at tonight's event. Well, welcome, Greg. Thank you so much for agreeing to be here and from flying in all the way from Columbus, Ohio to Spokane, Washington. I know everyone's excited and record number turnout for tonight's event. So
that's great.
Yeah, we're excited to get going. Two parts. Wanted to kind of start more high level. Certainly your role at JP, what fixed incomes are, but let's start there. What specifically is your role at JPMorgan? What kind of team do you work within? How does that team work?
Yeah, my favorite way of explaining my job is that I'm a fixed income investment specialist, first of all. What does that mean? Well, I sit on a trade floor with portfolio managers. I sit on a trade floor with traders, with credit analysts, with risk analysts and others, but I don't do any of those things. So my joke is I don't actually do anything. What I do is I soak up all of that information, I soak up that entire atmosphere, and then I talk to clients about what it is that we do. So that's my job, that's my role.
And how long have you been now with JPMorgan?
27 years now.
Wow.
Started in 1997, I believe.
And how long have you been in this do everything and nothing at the same time type role?
13 years.
Okay.
So have had various roles, but for the last 13 years I've been sitting on a trade floor talking with portfolio managers and people like yourself.
Give us a little insight. I think it's something we talk to our clients all the time about how many smart, diligent people like yourself are working on their behalf. You just mentioned a myriad of different roles and positions, far more than I think someone, without having worked at a fixed income shop might anticipate. How does that team work together? Maybe give us just some quick examples of where two or three of those positions might come together to make a key decision on client's behalf.
Yeah, so let's say that we were going to buy a bond. Let's say that was a corporate bond. So we're lending to a corporation. And the portfolio manager knows that we have a need in the portfolio. They may talk to the trader, what's out in the market today? What kind of levels are we trading at? They'll talk to the credit research analysts. They're the ones whose role is specifically to do all of the research on that company and that company's debt to make sure that it's a safe investment for all of our clients. So the three of them together will make a choice about what bonds to buy, what makes sense for the portfolio. They'll buy the bonds. And by the way, the risk team is giving risk oversight on the front side of the trade and on the back side of the trade too. So really, the entire team has to work together, and all those different roles that I mentioned have to work together, even for just one bond trade.
You mentioned the front and the back. I would imagine that through the life cycle of that holding, people are doing perpetual due diligence, making sure that corporate balance sheet is staying strong. Who does that responsibility?
Yeah, that's the corporate credit analyst role. And by the way, they're making sure that the company's strong. Our risk team is doing a lot of scenario analysis, making sure it still fits in the portfolio the right way. Mm-hmm. And so these roles are very important for us, but they're also very important for our clients, because these are the things that, number one, determines that we can outperform over time, but we also want to do it in a risk-managed way. We don't want to take extra risk to be able to do that, and so that's...
So if I'm hearing you right, not only the risk, credit quality of a singular issuance, but really how it plays or fits in within the pantheon of all the other holdings within that portfolio.
Absolutely. That's what we're testing for.
Probably could have started there, but there's so many different places to start. What is a bond, Greg? What is fixed income? Why is it debt? And why do people use so many different names for what is often the same thing?
Yeah, we like to say at JPMorgan, we like to say we're the lenders of our clients' money. And that's what it is. It's a loan. And the loans are two different types of entities. You can have loans to the federal government, those are treasuries. You can have loans to corporations, those are corporate bonds. You can have loans to people who have mortgages, those are mortgage bonds. You can have loans to other types of people who are taking on debt. So Car loans can be packaged into an asset-backed security. Commercial mortgage-backed securities can be packaged into a loan. There's all kind. If you can take a loan out on something, you can make it into a bond. Mm-hmm. And in fact, I think the most unusual one that I ever saw was on golf carts. It was loans on golf carts, but I could tell you stories about all kinds of interesting things. But mostly, treasuries, corporates, and mortgages. Those are the biggest three. Those are the big three food groups in the investment grade space.
So we talk about these different types of loans, which make their way into different types of bonds. Walk us through, I know JPMorgan has a very defined methodology. We actually can have Matt put this graphic up on the screen, but walk us through JPMorgan's fixed income triangle and really what clients might take away from that from an allocation perspective.
Yeah, we came up with this probably 15 years ago. Your clients may be familiar on the Morningstar side. They put together what looks kind of like a tic-tac-toe board for equities, right? And so you have value and core and growth, and you have large cap, mid cap, and small cap. And it's simplistic. There may be better ways of thinking about it, but it's a good starting point.
Yeah.
There wasn't a good starting point for fixed income. And so we came up with the fixed income triangle. And a triangle implies that the base is very important, that that's what gives you stability. We like to say that the base is core bonds. Core bonds give you income and they give you stability to your overall portfolio. But you can go beyond that and add core complements. These are bond strategies, bond funds, bond ETFs that have income, but they don't act exactly like core bonds. They don't go up and down at the same time as core bonds. So they give you some diversification. These could be something like an absolute return strategy, or maybe some very short-term bonds that don't have as much interest rate risk, which maybe we'll talk about, I don't know. Or it could be something like inflation-managed bonds, something like that. Mm-hmm. So that's the middle of the triangle. Core complement, it complements your core. And then you have extended sectors. These are riskier parts of the fixed income markets, usually not as risky as stocks, but still they have some risk. They are high yield bonds. Sometimes you hear people say junk bonds. Mm-hmm. Leverage loans, which are similar to high yield bonds. They act a little bit differently. And maybe some emerging market bonds. They give you additional income, the potential for additional return, and they're a good diversifier as well. But as you can see, it's the top of the triangle. Usually that's the smaller part of what you're investing in, and the bigger part is your core bonds.
Gotcha. Greg, as we think through that triangle, we talk to our clients all the time about how they want their money to live. Liquidity needs, income needs, volatility reduction needs, and expected return. We'll put liquidity aside, maybe that'll be video part 2. But as we think through that triangle, how would you maybe sleeve in those different ideas in terms of what's going to drive a lot of that income? If I'm hearing you right, maybe that extended sector is more of that total return driver.
Absolutely.
That middle diversifier, more of a volatility buffer? Do they kind of lay out that way?
It's a volatility buffer to your core, so something that's going to not move up and down at exactly the same time as your core bonds. And the reason is because it probably doesn't have as much, we talk about interest rate risk. Mm-hmm. And then finally, those core bonds, that gives you stability, especially in the context of your overall portfolio. These are very special bonds because in economic hard times, when your equities are going down and when your real estate is going down and when other risky assets are going down, the other thing that's going down is interest rates. But that is actually a good thing. If you've ever seen the teeter-totter motif where they say, well, when interest rates are going down, your bond prices are going up. And so that is really where you get your stability. It doesn't have as much income. It has income, but not as much as those extended sectors like high yield bonds. But it does give you that stability that you're looking for.
So much like those singular bonds being monitored have to be evaluated within the same portfolio. Each of these different sleeves can act in tandem to maybe even reduce overall volatility while still helping meet those income needs.
I think that's a good way of putting it.
We're gonna have to wrap it up right there for part 1, but Greg's gonna stick around to shoot part 2. Check it out next week.